That's all right. We got Mark Schultz. We don't need all the bells and whistles. We got everything we need right here.
Yeah, yeah.
How you doing today? I'm so glad I could get a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm technologically, disabled, but at least we're seeing each other.
Oh, it took me like at least a good half hour to tinker around to get mine set up too, so don't feel bad. Don't feel
Yeah.
bad. Oh, so you just got back from a motorcycle trip? How was that?
Oh, I drove from Palo Alto to Medford, Oregon. That was really fun. Took me about 7 hours. Stopped about 5 times. It's really fun.
Did you meet
Just
any interesting people or just kind of a
uh,
solo thing?
no, I mean, I met a couple people at like a rest stop or something. Uh, nothing eventful happened. No wipeouts or crashes.
Uh,
I tell you, one guy I thought was going to crash though. You know what? We have this place called the Siskiyou Summit. It's the borderline between California and Oregon,
uh,
and it's a 6% downgrade for 4 miles, and it's really curvy. And I was, I don't have a lot of experience, and some guy just comes zooming by me, and he's weaving between the cars and going down this really steep. I'm like, man, this guy's gonna die. But apparently, I didn't see any grease spots on the road on my way down, so I guess he lived.
yeah, he must have made it. He lived for today, but what about tomorrow?
Yeah, he's
Right?
dead meat.
uh, well, that's really actually hilarious. You're worried about this guy taking chances when, like, I think you fought like in UFC, like just for fun, on like a day's notice,
Yeah,
when UFC was like really scary. Like we didn't know if people would die or not, and Mark was just like,
yeah,
"I'll do that."
yeah. It was, yeah, it was. It was the primordial days of the UFC. Only
Yeah,
two rules: no eye gouging and no biting.
right.
Actually, there was a third rule. They said if you're going to wear shoes, you can't kick.
Oh,
So
really?
I had to wear shoes because my style requires traction, right?
Hmm.
Because I'm a wrestler. So I thought I would wear shoes and just not kick. And you can see in that fight, Gary was complaining that I'm trying to kick him, but I really wasn't. I was trying to
Oh,
feed
really?
him my leg to see if he would grab it, which he never did. He was smart enough not to do that, but
Oh, that's wild. That's wild. I actually got that pulled up. I was actually kind of wanting to ask you about that because that was like a really interesting fight because Gary had that gi on, like he was some kind of taekwondo master or something, but that wasn't what he was, right? So here's Gary White, and he was wearing the gi, but I think it's not even a gi, right? It's not like a jujitsu gi. It's
it's a gi. Yeah, it is.
uh But he didn't wear that when he was like in Pride and whatever. But this time,
No, after this fight, he took the gi off.
but he actually it actually kind of helped him because it looked like
It,
once
it, yes, in our fight, it did help him.
yeah because like what happened? You got the takedown.
I got
Really?
takedown, and he wrapped me up in a one-handed guillotine and was about this close to knocking me out.
So interesting that stance. Like it looks a lot like Hickson Gracie in his fights back
See,
when. Were you modeling him,
everybody,
or were you just
I
kind of making things work?
no, I intentionally modeled Hickson Gracie.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Yeah.
he's my instructor's instructor.
So I mean, they probably made it sound like I mean you were training with fighters. You weren't
Yeah,
just like
yeah. I took 3 years of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu before I walked in there.
right. Were you boxing too, or
Yeah.
just?
Well, I had this heavyweight named Mike Bolster. He
Hmm.
came from Southern California, and he would challenge me like every day. Just coincidentally, 3 months before the UFC, I was taking jiu-jitsu, and Tank Abbott was his friend. And Tank
Oh,
Abbott and Paul Herrera, who Gary fought in UFC 8, and got caught in a crucifix.
Oh, the elbows, the murder elbows.
Yes, that was Paul Herrera. He was Tank Abbott's best friend at the time, or training partner at the time. And those two guys came out to BYU to train with me, and they were connected with me through Mike Bolster, my heavyweight. And so they came out and trained with us for like two months. And then after that, Mike would come into my office and he would challenge me to fight him, no holds barred, every day in the BYU wrestling room for like 3 months. I never understood why he kept wanting to do that, because there was no holds barred. We were really punching and kicking each other hard, you know. And I just was like, you really want to keep doing this? Okay. And he just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And so I actually had a lot of experience fighting no holds barred before I went into the octagon. I had just never competed before. But yeah, Mike Bolster. It's funny because Bolster means to boost. And he boosted my confidence quite a bit by challenging me every day for all that time.
Oh, okay. So that's really interesting. So you weren't like, so I think a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm going to get good at jiu-jitsu, and then I'm going to learn how to box. But you guys were just fighting. That's how you trained.
Yeah, we had the wrestling background already, and I was teaching all the wrestlers on my BYU wrestling team jiu-jitsu, and a bunch of my guys went on to become really good jiu-jitsu guys. One guy won the World Grappling Championships, and we had a lot of tough guys. But yeah, I introduced BYU to that world, which I had never known about before until 1991 when I had that match with Hickson.
But I think you mentioned before, like, thankfully you knew a little bit of judo, so you kind of had an idea what he was working on.
Yeah, I didn't know much, but I did know enough to keep my chin down and my elbows in, because I did some judo with the U.S. Judo Association out in Colorado Springs with Leo White and those guys. Leo White is like the best judo guy ever. And he taught me a few things. And because of that, I was able to survive a lot longer than I would have had I not been trained a little bit in judo.
Wow, I see. So was Hickson, like, was he just like a lot to deal with at first, or did he kind of like weather the storm and then come back when you guys were in the room?
He kind of weathered. See, I didn't know any submission holds, and I didn't know what was going to happen that day. The story that I can tell you the whole story, but you can go watch it on YouTube now. It's called Wrestling Demons: Mark Schultz's Ultimate Victory. The story of how I met Hickson and Pedro and Dave Beneteau, and you could just go watch that documentary. You don't have to listen to me tell the story again.
No. I was just wondering, like, when you were actually training, you know, maybe it seems like maybe it's a while ago. Like, I just wondering, what was he trying to do? Was he trying to sweep you? Did he did he just concede to guard, or did he at least fight for the top position?
He actually jumped into the guard.
Okay, so he didn't mess around. Did he know that you were like a gold medalist wrestler?
Yes, because the guy that called me on the phone and tried to intimidate me, he said, "Is this Mark Schultz, Olympic wrestling champion?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "The best jiu-jitsu fighter in the world's in town. Do you want to fight him?" And he wouldn't tell me what the rules were. I asked him what the rules were. He wouldn't tell me. He said there were no rules, which was a bunch of BS.
Oh, so
he was just trying to intimidate me.
He wasn't like doing palm strikes and stuff too. You guys were grappling.
Just submission grappling.
So that was just kind of like, maybe he would, but maybe that you just guys had like a gentlemanly agreement that way you weren't going to hit each other.
Well, when I walked into the room, and this is all on the documentary, like I said, if you want to know the story of how that whole thing occurred, you can just watch the documentary. When I walked into the room the day of that, the guy called me on the phone. He said, "Is this Mark Schultz, Olympic wrestling champion?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "The best jiu-jitsu fighter in the world's in town. Do you want to fight him?" And I go, "What are the rules?" And he said, "There are no rules."
There are no rules.
Intimidate me.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna let anybody punk me. So I said,
Right.
you tell them to meet me in the BYU wrestling room a week from Thursday because I had to go to the NCAA's, and we'll fight it out, commit a homicide, gouge each other's eyes out, bite each other's throats out, whatever we got to do to win. I'm not going to back down from anybody. The
So,
day of the fight comes over, and I show up in the BYU wrestling room, and he goes, "What I do?" And I see Hickson, and he's scooting on his butt, and he's trying to hook the feet of Alan Albright, the head coach, my boss. And as soon as I walk in the room, he stands up and he comes over to me and he goes, "Are you the guy?" I go, "Yeah." "Are you the guy?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "What I do is when I fight is I punch and kick, elbow and knee. But today we're just going to do submission grappling until one of us taps out." And so I was like, thank God there's no homicide today. So I, we went into the middle of the room and then we fight. And the documentary covers what happened after that.
I see. Well, I was wondering, you said you didn't have any submissions, but I was watching these old clips of you, Mark, and it looks like I don't think you can do this nowadays, but it looked like you were doing like a kimura or like a sumigaeshi, like flip from the single leg. Let me see if I can find that.
Oh, you're talking about when I broke the Turk's arm in the Olympics.
Oh yeah, yeah, right. Oh my
Right
God.
there. That's it right there.
Like,
Rewind that about 10 times.
all right. The angle is kind of hard to see. Like, I know, but see, like in judo, like you can kind of do this, but like if the arm comes out, I think you're not supposed to twist it. But if they like grab their wrist, you can use it to turn them. So when you're doing this, are you trying to rip their arm out? Or are you just trying to flip them?
I'm trying to flip him.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. That looks so painful. But is this like something you kind of worked in the room, or was it just like something you came up with in the moment?
Yes, I just came up with it in the moment.
Okay, wow. And then I think you did this, but you did this.
No, I've never done it before or since.
Oh, really? I thought that was like your move. That's crazy. Wow.
Well, I do this move a lot, but his head is always trapped into my chest. I've never done it with his head on the outside like that before.
Okay, so yeah, here he's got like a high crotch. He's trying to get a high, or trying to.
He's got a high crotch.
Head on the outside, and you take his arm that has your leg and you wrap it up, and you can't see how you're grabbing it, but this is totally like a catch wrestling or judo.
It's a double wrist lock. It's just kimura, double wrist lock.
So was he like seriously hurt, or did he just kind of?
Yeah, his elbow broke.
Oh God! So this wasn't illegal at the time.
Well, there was a lot of controversy over whether it was legal or illegal. And to tell you the truth, I think they came up with a rule that day to decide whether it was legal or illegal.
The Mark Schultz rule.
That's right.
Everybody sets a precedent. I love that. Because yeah, I have that, and like I try to work the arm. I actually lost a judo match because I pulled the arm out and I was trying to turn him, but it twisted his arm back and he tapped out. And then, but I still lost because that was against the rules. But that's like 2018. Judo and wrestling, probably.
The rule that they came up with at the Olympics, the day that I did this at the Olympics, was they said, if you take the arm beyond 90 degrees to 91 degrees, it's illegal. If it goes below 90 degrees, it's legal. I had never heard that before or since, to tell you the truth.
Okay. So when was this? Was this 84 when you won the gold?
Yes. So I actually lost that match. They disqualified me 8 hours later when they filed a protest, but they gave me the victory by fall right after it happened. And I was like, thank God I got the number one guy out of the tournament because he was ranked number one in the world. He won the European Championships. He beat all the Russians that boycotted the Olympics.
Really? That's amazing.
A lot of people disrespect the 1984 Olympic gold medal in wrestling because of the boycott. But what people don't realize is some of those weight classes were not diluted at all. And my brother's weight was one of them. And Barry Davis's weight was another, and my weight was another. We had the toughest guys in the world at our weight classes. It might not have had the depth, but it doesn't matter. Gold medal is the only thing that matters.
I see. So that all makes sense. One in 84, but Russia wasn't there. And Russia's obviously like the powerhouse of wrestling.
Yeah, there's about 5 gold medals that were won at the 84 Olympics that probably would not have been won had the Russians not boycotted the 84 Olympics. I don't think it would have mattered in my case. It might have. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. It's kind of cocky to say that. But my brother was definitely the best wrestler in the world. He was 1983 world champion. And then the year after the Olympics, I'm the only 84 Olympic champion to win the 85 Worlds, where the whole world's there. To say that I wouldn't win the Olympics if the boycott had not occurred, I don't know how much of a stretch that is, but I don't know. I've been pretty lucky. I believe in miracles. I believe in God. I think a lot of the stuff that happened to me because part of God's plan, I guess. I don't know. I was gifted with great athletic ability and a mind that could dissect technique really quickly. My brother had the same kind of skill mentally. He changed. My brother was kind of weak and slow as an athlete, which is really weird because he dominated and he did it with superior technique. Then he met Kenny Monday, who had physical superiority, and he was a superior technician too. Kenny, I have a lot of respect for Kenny Monday, a lot.
Well, that's the interesting thing about wrestling. I think a lot of people think, oh, everybody wrestling is just about being strong or whatever. I mean, there's actually a lot of different ways to wrestle. I think that's like really amazing.
It is. You can win in wrestling using so many different tactics and methods and techniques. It's really for everybody. Anybody and everybody can wrestle and figure out a way to use whatever assets they have to win.
Yeah, like and then
I had very low max VO2. I couldn't consume oxygen very good. That's why I kept getting called for stalling when I was in the NCAAs. I probably set the record stalling calls.
Oh, really?
Probably.
But you had to make your own strategy.
I had to think of a way to beat these guys that were aerobically superior without being aerobically superior. So I figured out a way to do it.
Oh.
Faked a lot of injuries. I'm kidding.
I guess that's all part of the game, right?
Kidding.
But still, I mean, even on that level of physicality or like aerobic things, I'm sure you're like above a normal person. You're still light years ahead, you know. But that's kind of interesting though. Like so, both like in the NCAAs and like the Olympics, like who were kind of some of the toughest matches you've had like on the mat wrestling?
Well, this is like if you go and look at, for example, the number one rated toughest weight classes of the 1980s. The number one weight class of the decade. It's for the toughest weight class of the decade has been voted on by my peers as 1982, 177 pounds was the toughest weight class of the 80s.
Okay.
Ed Bannock, me, Perry Hummel, Charlie Heller. The number 5 toughest weight class of the 80s was 167, 1981. And that was my weight class where we had Mike Deanna, me, John Hanrahan, Perry Hummel, Reedy. They had national champion Matt Reese. It was a really tough weight class there too. And I couldn't believe, how it just seemed like these tough guys were just following me all over. Like, it's just weird.
No easy lunch, huh? What about like getting into the Olympics and on the Olympics, like what countries seem to have like some of the hardest matches for you?
Russia was real big. That was our adversary mainly. We were competing. Turkey was really tough. Iran is super tough. Mongolia, for a population of 1 million, they've got to be the toughest people on earth. Mongolia's national sport is wrestling. It's the only country where wrestling is the national sport. It's because Genghis Khan used wrestling, archery, and horseback riding to conquer half the world.
I see.
So they honor wrestling in these hajam ceremonies every year, and it's a really strange style of wrestling. It's a little bit like sumo, but yeah, they're a very warrior culture. I would get along. I should go to Mongolia and move there because
yeah, that's
they really respect wrestlers above everybody else. I mean, the president of Mongolia right now has got cauliflower ears.
Yeah, I think he's a judo.
Yeah, he is a
judo guy, and I think he kind of set up the big exchange between Japan and Mongolia for all the sumo wrestlers, and now the sumo wrestlers are all the good sumo wrestlers are Mongolian. Really, I mean, there's good some high level Japanese, but like for instance, so I wonder, like, you wrestle Mongolian. I would assume like maybe they're strong, but maybe their technique would be different. I know it's probably a long time ago, it might be hard to remember, but like, would they give you like different impressions? Like, oh, like Russians, like, are they just really strong, really technical? Do they have like a unique style?
To be honest with you, I didn't really think about my opponents very much. I thought about me, my technique, my style. There was a move that I thought that somebody was using. Like, for example, Mike Sheets. Mm-hmm. Mike Sheets, we're talking about how rules get made against you, Yeah. Mike Sheets had a rule against him, and that's called the technical fall rule. And when he was the technical fall rule, yeah. In 1983, I believe, he outscored his opponent 68-3. He beat his first guy 29-0. And so the next year, they implemented this rule that said if you get 15 points ahead, you win by technical fall. I call that the Mike Sheets rule. Well, he was the first American to beat me in 5 years in the United States. And what was the question?
No. Actually, I think I was being too specific. You actually answered. It's like, oh, was there any technique or whatever that you remember? But you kind of have a more winner's mindset. You're worried about what you're doing instead of Instead of
the only time. That's right. The only time I've ever watched what my opponent did was when Mike Sheets pinned me in 1988. I went into the 88 Olympic trials actually ranked second behind Mike, and I ended up beating him. But when he pinned me, I could not figure out how he got so much leverage on this leg ride he used. And it was the very first, and videotape had just been invented in 1982, I think it was. So,
really? Oh yeah. My God. Wow. Yeah. So you just had the word of mouth and try it. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. All the guys that lived before 1982 and competed have never seen themselves wrestle. It's terrible. Anyway, I saw how Sheets turned me over and pinned me, and then that was the only time. And I looked at that move very carefully, and I studied it, and I realized the reason that he got it on me was because he got my knee off the ground. So the next time I wrestled him, I glued my knees to the ground, and he couldn't do anything. Amazing. That's the only time I've ever watched my opponent.
Well, I mean, I just noticed like in Foxcatcher, there's this scene where you're talking with Dave about like, oh, every time maybe that's more like he was more the technician. He's like, every time he does an arm spin, he's open for an arm spin. And I was like, oh my God, that's actually really cool. I want to try that in practice. And I was like, I don't know if like that's something that Dave actually said or if they did their research. But I was like, for some reason I remembered that, like when they were talking to Channing Tatum in the movie.
Yeah.
But maybe you were just like, whatever, I'm just going to kick his ass. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that movie Foxcatcher, it's 100% lies. 100% lies.
Okay.
Except the last scene of the movie where Dave gets murdered. That actually happened exactly according to the court records. But after the murder, DuPont went back to his house and barricaded himself, and they didn't do that in the movie. Everything before and after the murder, it's all BS.
Okay.
I did like the fact that Channing played me, though, because he's People Magazine's sexiest man alive. And, of course, we all know that's the only guy I could find to play me. So,
except no substitutes. No, I mean, I was just wondering, like, because, yeah, I know that they definitely took some artistic liberties, to say the least. But I was wondering how how they portrayed wrestling though. Like, cause wrestling isn't really in the media. Maybe it's a little bit more known now. But do you think? Cause I don't know. I thought they were good with the details, but I mean I'm not a very high level wrestler, but the way the actors interacted and choreographed the match, I thought
Yeah,
that was kind of good.
I showed Channing my best moves, and he's really good at learning really fast. He's one of the guys. He thinks like a gymnast. You know, I was a gymnast before I was a wrestler,
Mm.
and he thinks the same way. He's a really good dancer, so he can mimic physical movements really well. And when I showed him like the drag trip and the gut wrench and stuff, he could do it almost right away, you know, and he just kept practicing repetition and repetition, and he got really good at it. And, you know, when you're filming, you know, it's all choreographed and, you know, you can make it look really good. And he
Yeah.
did.
I was just interested. I mean, because there's not a lot of wrestling movies. I mean, what is there?
Takedown,
Vision
vision
Quest, and it's like the moves. Like I understand they got to look good on camera, but it didn't really look like a wrestling match. I thought that was like a step up. In my opinion, I don't know if you. What do you think, or did you even care?
I didn't care.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, obviously the focus was on the drama and not the actual wrestling, so I understand.
I hated that movie. God, I hate that movie. I love Channing. I love Mark Ruffalo and Steve Carell, but that movie sucks so bad because it's so inaccurate.
Uh
The documentary destroys all the lies in that movie. Wrestling Demons, that just was nominated for an Emmy.
oh yeah, right.
When I
Oh,
say documentary, that's what I mean.
oh, I'm sorry. There's another documentary on Netflix.
There's a bunch of documentaries actually. There's Prince of Pennsylvania. There's Team Foxcatcher. There's The
Dude.
Mind of Mark Schultz.
Oh, I see, I see. Oh, because in this documentary you said in the movie they made it seem like you lost to the Turkish guy, but instead you threw it.
That's right.
Yeah, I see. In the movie, they kind of beefed it up, like, to make it more dramatic, like you didn't make weight or something, and...
Let me tell you why I hate that movie, Foxcatcher.
Okay, sorry.
Bennett Miller,
I want to know, but I don't want to... Go ahead.
the director, Bennett Miller,
Mm-hmm.
he went public with a statement in the Washington Times.
Okay.
And he said something, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, my intention from the beginning was to disrespect and demean Mark Schultz.
Well, fuck that movie. Let's talk about wrestling. Worst movie ever. Okay, so
But that's what's so great about this documentary that just was nominated for an Emmy. Is it's the true story, and it was nominated for Best Short Documentary, which means the story itself, the true story, is a great story and was nominated for an Emmy. It's so good, it was nominated for an Emmy. Was Foxcatcher nominated for Best Picture? I don't think so.
I don't think a lot of people got it. Yeah. No, it was great, and I love Chell's such a great storyteller. I mean,
Yes,
you can't get anybody better than Chael to sell. Like he should just talk about ice cream or whatever. But it's something he actually knows about, like wrestling. Like he could sell video games to a blind man or whatever. It's just the way he talks.
I was so lucky that Chael was part of that. I really am grateful to him. He was so great in that thing, and so was Dave Beneteau, and so was Gary Goodrich, and so was Pedro Sauer.
Ah.
And the director of that movie, I love the director of that movie because his intention from the beginning was to tell the truth. And that's all I ever wanted. And finally got it. And he's the one, his name was Ben Chiliberti. I love that guy. God, I love him. I wanted to win so bad for him because he was so great. And I tried to make him as good as I could. And you know what else is great is Dana White's the executive producer.
Okay.
Yeah, and Dana, I love Dana. Yeah, he's so great. he paid for my teeth, and just he's great.
Yeah, no, and I love the artwork too. The
Yeah, I thought they would get an Emmy nomination for best animation.
yeah, I mean, what do we got here? I mean, it's just really cool. It kind of keeps you enthralled. Like I can just sit there and listen to the story with no pictures, but when you're going to a, lay audience, it helps a lot to get the picture how the story is.
Now,
Yeah.
this podcast, your podcast, is the first podcast I've done since the Emmys. And there's something very coincidental about this Emmy category. It's best short documentary, or not best, but outstanding short documentary. And there's another documentary that's in the same category in the same year as mine, and it's called The Blood Sport. And it's about Carlton Hasselrig. Carlton Hasselrig is actually a great friend of mine. And he was my training partner at the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown when I had a wrestling camp there. And he ended up being a 3-time NCAA champion at heavyweight. And actually the 6-time NCAA champion, if you count Division II. But he was so great. And he went into the NFL without playing one down in college. And he walks on to the Pittsburgh Steelers and then becomes a Pro Bowler. But then he got CTE and he suffered horrible effects of that. And he died at the age of 54. And I had heard rumors that he was into drugs and got thrown in jail. And what really happened, though, was the doctors couldn't help him. His brain damage was so bad they couldn't help him, and he was trying to cure himself. And he got in trouble for using, illegal drugs because the legal ones weren't working. And and because of that, they were telling stories like the story I heard was that he got into drugs and he went to jail and stuff. And the true story is he was a victim and he needed help. And I did not know that. And I'm so pissed that I didn't know that because he was such a great friend of mine. And I couldn't figure out what was going on with him. The next thing I know, they say he died. And I was like, and if this documentary hadn't come out, I would have never known the truth about what was going on with him. And his story is nominated for the exact same category in the exact same year as mine, which is really weird. And the guy that actually, there's another documentary in the same category about Jeremy Lin, who's the first Asian basketball superstar. And he went to my high school. Crazy.
Oh, so there is a plan, huh? That's pretty. That's
why I believe in God. I think God talks to us through coincidence.
Oh.
That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong.
I think that's a very strong. I think it's a very strong idea. I'd be inclined to believe that too. But sometimes it seems like all the coincidences are bad.
Yeah. I don't know.
Who's that? But yeah, that's amazing though. Wow, I'm glad though. No, I mean it's just a.
Yeah, I quit the Mormon Church, by the way. I used to be the head wrestling coach at BYU, and I joined the church.
Okay.
Half the reason I joined the church was to get the job at BYU. I got to be honest about that.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But I did baptize my son, so that proves that I believed it. However, I found out recently that it's all BS. The whole thing. Joseph Smith is a lying scumbag. The Book of Mormon is all plagiarized fiction. The Book of the Doctrine all fiction. The Book of Abraham, the Book of Moses, it's all fiction.
Well, I have some Mormon friends, Mark, and I don't know I don't know anybody more nice and capable people then, and I don't want to say because my friend is my friend. He is who he is, not because he's Mormon, but all he's just such an amazing person. I don't know too many people like
Mormons,
him. You know,
they're great. Mormons are my favorite people. They really are. The fact that it's almost like I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like they stopped growing. It's like their innocence stopped at the 6th grade, and they're just stuck there, like the rest of their life. It's funny because there's great people there. My wrestling team, they're the most moral kids I've ever met in my entire life, and they were so intelligent. They were the #1 academic team in the nation 3 times at BYU. My teams were, and they were the best kids. They just, they didn't drink, they didn't smoke, they were clean, dry, sober as you can get, and they were very hardworking, very smart, and I love the Mormon people. I hate the church and I hate the leaders because they lie to the rank and file members, but I love the Mormon people. They're great people.
oh wow, wow. You get so much inside information. My head is gonna explode. Wow. I feel like I know so much more about the world now. I wake up tomorrow a different person.
Well, you know what? The Mormon church controlled a huge part, about 1/5 the United States. When Brigham Young took the Saints west, he moved out of the United States to Salt Lake City, Mexico. And then the next year, the United States had a war with Mexico and took that land and all the other states west of Salt Lake City. And Brigham Young sent out settlers all over the Great Basin. And he had settlers going from Southern California, Pacific Ocean, to the Rocky Mountains, and then as far as Idaho, and then as far down as New Mexico, even into Mexico. But yeah, and then he applied for statehood for the state of Deseret. Deseret means honeybee in Hebrew, and they were going to apply for this state to be part of the United States, and it was as big as Alaska. But President Buchanan hated Brigham Young. He wasn't going to let a theocratic governor rule anything. So he took his governorship away, replaced him with a secular governor, and then cut the size down to the states that we have now and the size of Utah is now. But they controlled a massive part of the United States for a very long time. And it's no wonder that all these people got drawn into it. I mean, I've never seen a phenomenon like the Mormon Church anywhere else in the world in all of history. I don't think.
Really, wow. Wow. So I mean, but there's a lot of great wrestlers that are Mormon, right? I mean, Chael's Mormon, right?
You got Chael Sanders.
Is it just
because
is it because you have so many brothers to like?
Yes.
By the time that, I mean, I'm not trying to stereotype, but if I had like 7 brothers, that's a freaking team.
Yes, exactly.
That's a team. You don't have to go to that room.
Yeah, they're wrestling on the living room carpet and everything. It's a Mormon. It's wrestling is like made for the Mormons.
Oh, but actually, that makes me think of a really interesting thing, though. Folk style wrestling, right? Why is in America? Do you have an opinion about this? How come why just America our wrestling, or at least academic wrestling, is completely different than the rest of the world? Do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I think the reason we have folk style wrestling is because some of our wrestlers went to the Olympics back in the early days, and they couldn't understand the scoring. They didn't give points. And they would just raise the flag of who they thought was the winner at the end. And the wrestlers in the United States didn't think that was fair. So they came back to the United States, created their own style, and that became folk style or collegiate style. And I think that it's actually, when it comes to learning how to fight on the street, I think folk style is closer to a real fight because they've got riding and escaping where freestyle doesn't.
I see. Well, yeah, I mean, because it's like, yeah, you could gut wrench somebody and it's just like, oh, why? I mean, it looks cool. It looks cool. It's like, but you wind up in the same position. But I just wonder, it's like the whole world was like, hey, look at me, I'm stronger. It seems like, when the two clans meet and they're gonna go to war, but people have to see like I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I win because your feet went like this. Because normal people don't know, right? But honestly, I think folk style is probably better. But it's like a lot of times, like the goal is just to control somebody, right? You control them, they can't do anything. That's a win. But might not be the most exciting thing to watch. I don't know.
Well, I was better. I felt, well, I don't know if I was better at collegiate than I was at freestyle. I won 3 NCAA titles. I was the NCAA Outstanding Wrestler. And I won 4 U.S. Open titles, the Olympics, and 2 Worlds. I was never voted the Outstanding Wrestler of any U.S. Open tournament or anything. My brother, however, was voted Outstanding Wrestler 4 times. He won the U.S. Open like 8 times. And I think he won it twice also in Greco. So he's like 10 times.
Greco too. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have a much stronger upper body, and it takes a strong upper body to control somebody on the mat. And Dave was better at turning and throwing, and so he favored freestyle over collegiate. He actually gave away a year of eligibility in college because he didn't care about wrestling collegiate. So when we transferred from UCLA to Oklahoma, he actually lost a year of eligibility because he already transferred once from Oklahoma State to UCLA. And I then redshirted, so I didn't lose any eligibility. But that'll tell you how much of a priority Dave gave to collegiate style compared to freestyle.
Well, he wanted the gold, right? I mean, he wanted to go to the Olympics.
Yeah, I don't think he cared about collegiate style as much as I did. I really, I don't know why. I faced a lot of adversity in college, a lot. I mean, on and off the mat, and I learned a lot about myself in college, man. I did things I thought I couldn't do. I didn't know if I could do it, and it was definitely a learning experience.
Wow.
I mean, when I first got to Oklahoma, the first day of practice, Coach Abel takes us around this duck pond and runs us around it. It's 107 degrees out in Oklahoma. It's like 98% humidity. And we're like running on the surface of the sun. And I'm thinking, what the hell? How am I going to get through 4 years of this? It was so painful, so hot. And I was so exhausted. I was just like, and it's just, we start off with like 70 guys on the team, and we end up with like 12 at the end of the year.
12 on the college team. Wow. Well, I mean, how was that? I mean, was it just kind of like, the best will stay in, or was there like, I mean, the coach, there's still like a support, right? You guys want to make each other better. You're not just beating each other up, or was it just like, just get the people that really, really have the grit, and then you could build each other up. It's not like cutthroat. It's just hard.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
Oh yeah, Abel is the most cutthroat coach in the country. This is what he does. He packs the room with everybody. He doesn't care who they are. He just packs the room with as many people as possible and lets them beat the shit out of each other. And whoever comes out on top is pretty good.
Well, is that good coaching, or is that just like being a dictator?
Work for me, so I can't. He was a good coach for me.
I see. Wow.
A lot of people don't like him. I do.
Well, yeah. Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting thing, though. Well, I mean, I hear they're gonna do things like in NCAA, like maybe instituting like a 3-point feet to back or something, because
3-point what?
Like if you go feet to back, somewhat a little bit more like
feet to back. Oh,
yeah, if you get feet to back, because like in freestyle, even if you don't take them down, if you can set them down on their back, they roll over. Even if they get back up, that's still like 4 points. You can rack up a lot of points. but like there's not really much of an incentive to throw in collegiate. Is this true? That's what I thought.
Well, I can only speak from my own experience. And you know what's weird is my match, like for example, with Ed Bannock in the finals in 1982, we're standing straight up. We're locking each other up in upper body ties in like we're in a Greco match. And we're standing straight up. I've never seen two guys locked up like that, standing straight up with both guys ready to throw. And I came out on top 2 out of 3 of those situations, luckily, and that's how I beat him. But it was very different than most collegiate matches that you see. And I think it was because he had such a big ego. So did I. And we were 2 guys who were just like, let's go, let's throw down, dude, and we just both went for it. And I got to give a lot of credit to him, man. He's got a lot of balls, and he's got an incredible conditioning. I would say Ed Bannock is the most conditioned athlete I've ever wrestled. I mean, he beat me 4 out of 6 times, and he did it mainly by just driving me into exhaustion. He could run a 5-minute mile. I watched him run a 5-minute mile at the 1983 World Team Training Camp. We were both on the team that year. And man, he's fast. And I was not a good long distance runner. I was a great sprinter. I could out sprint anybody, but long distance, I was terrible. And wrestling is kind of a combination of anaerobic and aerobic power. And I was very anaerobic. Bannock and Gable, they're very aerobic. And referees in college like that aerobic style where you just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and just keep shooting, Whereas me, I would have to like control the action until I saw an opening. And then when I exploded as hard as I could. And I had to make sure it counted because using all that energy was going to leave me exhausted at the end. And I had to get the points at the end if I was going to expend that kind of energy. So
I see. Yeah, that's anyway. Kind of like the Gable mentality, like just be in super great shape and go, right?
Yeah, and it works. You exhaust somebody to death. They can't defend themselves no matter what techniques they know.
I get but it seems like though in freestyle, it seems like people lean forward more though, like maybe because they're trying to push or something like.
In freestyle?
Yeah, international. It seems like more leaning forward, right? Or I guess it depends on the wrestler.
I've never heard that before.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But it just seems like in freestyle, right? Even if you shoot and you slip up, you could fall on your side, still get the takedown, but they could score on you. Or was it like that when you were wrestling?
Well, this is why we have collegiate style, because these freestyle rules, if let's say, for example, America switched to freestyle. Now we are subject to a world governing body, whereas before we controlled ourselves. Well, who wants to subject themselves to somebody else and put them in power when we have our own style? We don't need them,
I see. Well, I believe women's collegiate wrestling is freestyle. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, the reason is because there's not that many women. So what they're trying to do, I think, I could be wrong, but I think they're trying to draw in as many women to wrestle from freestyle, because there's all these freestyle tournaments in the off season, and putting together a collegiate season for a women's team, it's kind of hard because there's not that many teams. There's not that many women. And, wrestling has been kind of trying to move women into the sport to try to even out the Title IX numbers.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just not. They've done they've created a significant number of women's teams, but it's just not a sport for women. I mean, in general, there's a lot of women that like it, but most women don't.
Most people don't.
Most people don't.
It's hard.
Especially,
It's hard.
I I am not an advocate of women wrestling men because men can't win. You pin a guy, you pin a woman in 10 seconds. It's like, what's the matter, you pussy? You can pin her in 9. You can't win.
Yeah.
I like women's judo, though. There's a powerful women's judo team.
Women's judo can be kind of more interesting, right? Because once guys get a grip, that's kind of it. That's the grip for until the referee stops. But yeah, female fighters is like they'll break and they'll like. It seems like they're active and they take more chances. In my opinion, when I watch female judo, sometimes it's even more exciting than men. It seems like the men are trying to be very, very careful. In my opinion.
I really like judo. I love the takedowns. I love watching judo highlights and stuff. See, that's one thing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu needs to add to their repertoire is these judo takedowns. Because when you fight somebody, most of the time, I mean, real martial art, if real martial art is going to be effective, it's got to be effective on hard surfaces, on the street, on the floor, because that's a very, the ground is hard in most places. You're not going to have mats where you're fighting usually. So if you can get somebody's head like right next to the ground, all you have to do is smash their head into the ground and the fight's over. Well, that's a weapon. The ground is a weapon. If you can get their head, 2 inches from the ground. That's why wrestling is so valuable, because you're going to end up on top in wrestling.
There's no Baron Bolo in the parking lot, or whatever you call it. Yeah, I see. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think wrestling is really underrated as a self-defense. It's not in there.
It's terribly underrated.
But I see on TikTok, people are doing like a whizzer. And people are like, oh my God, what's this secret move that you're breaking people's arms with? Like, it's a whizzer. We learned it in high school. Yeah. Like 300,000 views. It's like, what? Self-defense, but...
Yeah, and if you look at the all-time greatest UFC fighters, most of them are wrestlers. And there's more wrestlers that are UFC champions than any other martial art. And then right below that is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then right below that is Muay Thai, kickboxing. And then there's boxing. And
yeah,
I just read that yesterday.
No, yeah, it's very, very interesting. Like, even though, it is a different sport, but it seems like after, especially, the way you've learned to win, I mean, wrestlers know how to win, even if the rules are different, right? I guess maybe that's the advantage that we have having a different wrestling style. If you can learn another style and do great, that's almost even more impressive than, like, world wrestlers. They just done freestyle their whole life, but...
Yeah.
Would you say that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was very overjoyed, you might say, to learn about a completely different world of jiu-jitsu. When I left wrestling, I turned my back on the sport because I was so frustrated with just killing myself for nothing. I mean, USA wrestling officials are living like kings. We're living like paupers. We're going out trying to compete against the Russians and the best in the world, and we're not getting any financial support. And then if we did win, they're right there taking credit. Well, I was, in the 88 Olympics, I'm just like, this has gone too far. DuPont's in this program. It's not, I hate it. I'm sick of killing myself for nothing. So I quit for 3 years. And then I found jiu-jitsu with this guy calling me on the phone saying, you want to fight this greatest jiu-jitsu fighter? And it was so enlightening to see that there was this whole other world of martial arts out there, because I didn't start wrestling to wrestle to win championships. I started to become a great fighter, to learn how to defend myself. I had a very low level of confidence when I was a little kid because my parents put me in school a year early, so I was always small and young for my grade. So I was always consumed with trying to figure out how to kill this fear inside me and learn how to defend myself. And so when I found, that became like my modus operandi for years, all throughout my wrestling career. It wasn't to win tournaments. Tournaments was just a gauge to tell me how good I was as a fighter. But when I turned my back on wrestling, I thought I had, and I was right. Wrestling really was the best foundation for martial arts. But when I found jiu-jitsu and I was able to add that to wrestling and combined and created my own fighting style, it was a real revelation. It was a relief to find that there was something else out there that that I didn't know about before that was more effective in street fights than what I had spent my entire life trying to learn. Combination of wrestling and jiu-jitsu is much more, 10 times more effective than either one separately. Because,
I see.
Surfaces, you backseat play somebody on the concrete, you'd kill them.
Well, I mean, I guess the biggest argument both for jiu-jitsu, wrestling, or any sport is you have to quantify, like, who wins, how do you give a score, as opposed to, like, were you, did you not die? Did you not get hurt? Did you control the situation? I mean, that's something God knows it, but, like, we gotta say who wins. So that's really fascinating. Like, you're winning titles, but you're really just thinking about how can I be better. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But people complain. They say jiu-jitsu nowadays it's all about these certain point scorings. It's not practical.
Well, any sport is not going to be 100% applicable to a street fight. I mean, if you're in a street fight, pick up a rock and hit him over the head with it. It's just you can always find weaknesses in sports, compared to real world. Sports are controlled violence.
I guess so. Yeah, even baseball,
uncontrolled violence.
But don't you feel like it's a little bit like you lose a basketball game. And you're like, oh, shoot, that guy can jump higher, or he can throw an arbitrary, he can throw this round sphere through this hoop or whatever. But it's like, you lose a wrestling match, it's like, man, I got control of that beat. It's like a different feeling. I feel like you can't really even compare them, No. It's not the same.
No.
Yeah.
Dave taught me to take my losses in wrestling hard. When I lost in wrestling, I'd punch myself, I'd scream, I'd cry, I'd tear my clothes off, I'd bash my head against the wall. I made losing the most miserable experience I could possibly make it. So I never made that stupid, idiot mistake of putting that stain on my name and reputation again.
Wow. Well, Dave made you hate losing, or that was in yourself?
Dave hated losing, and I learned how to hate from him.
But did he get angry if he lost, or did he kind of
yeah, like crazy?
Oh, really? Because all the videos, he just seems like the nicest guy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's all BS.
Oh, really? Okay. I think like he's smart. Like he knew, like you can't put on the warrior face with everybody. You got to smile. Kiss the baby, shake some hands, and then murder. Then beat him up. Wow.
Yeah. He's like a saint. He walks onto the mat. And he's like Satan incarnate.
Saint or Satan? Which one?
Satan.
Satan. Okay.
Yes, he's like. Yes, he had every time he threw legs on me, I could have swore it was illegal.
Is it?
No. But it was so painful because he's breaking my back. That's why my back's so screwed up. I'm trying to keep from getting turned, and he's like, "You really want to keep from getting turned? I'll break your back."
Well, that's an interesting thing. Like about wrestling is like all you have to do is like, okay, I'm gonna roll over. I'm like, it's not a submission. It's like a submission in the context, right? It's like you can always roll over. It's okay. You're like, no, Okay, I might roll over. I'm not a champion, Mark. I'm sorry. I'm gonna roll over. I'm gonna roll over, and then I'll be like, okay, let's start again, or I'll see you in a week when my back heals or whatever. But I would probably turn. But you probably wouldn't. Like, no, never.
Oh man, that's how I learned the front headlock. I'm sitting here, I shot on Dave, and he front headlocks me, and I'm waiting for him to spin behind for the takedown, and he never does. He just stays in front. And I was like, what are you doing? And the next thing I know, I'm in this pasture with these cows and these birds and this music and these clouds. And I was like, and I wake up and he's standing over the top of me and
he choked you out?
Choked me out, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I see that happen. Like, so sometimes if you choke somebody out, like with a roll or something, are you disqualified, or is that just shit happening?
Well, they'll stop it. There's a rule against it. That's Dave Schultz international rule, the front headlock. Cutting the corner, front headlock. He's got a rule too.
You guys okay, we can't do this. Ruin it for everybody. The Schultzes ruin it for everybody. It's a great move, but we can't do it. We can't do the rolling Kimura. We can't use the headlock. Oh, I see. Standing roll. Well, I mean, yeah, because like in freestyle, you can if you get a good lock, you can roll them 5 times. It's a tech fall, But you can't do it standing. Or it's like, I know you have to have the arm.
You can do it standing or on the mat. Either way, you can do it from anywhere.
But how did they differentiate? Like, this is a way to score, and this is a choke.
Because when you cut the corner, when you're parallel, it's hard to choke a guy. But when you cut the corner, it's easy. So when you cut the corner, the refs start looking to see whether you're choking him or not, and that's when they.
Oh, so if you're in a really tough headlock, you try to make him look like he's choking me. He's choking me. Maybe that.
Yeah, that's what Mark did in the finals in the Olympics. He's going.
Who did that?
Yeah, he was acting. It was like an Academy Award.
How did that match turn out? Did it help?
Well, Dave beat him 4-1. This is a gold medal match.
Well, you got to get that gold if you got to put on your acting chops. I guess. I don't know. Would you do that, Mark, though, or would you just take the loss?
I'll never take a loss. What?
Okay. So act. That son of a bitch, he choked me.
Yeah. Well, luckily, I'm the brother of the inventor, so I know how to defend it.
Okay. But once you get here, you're kind of screwed, right? If you're like this. Or is there a top secret Schultz thing in the vault?
Yeah, I mean, without actually showing it here on, it's hard to explain.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Get a doll and show me. No, I'm just kidding. But no, that's a good little secret. People got to pay for that, right? You can't. I know the Schultz headlock reversal.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Millions and millions of dollars.
Wow. But so do you think though, I mean, I guess you already said that, it's good that we have our own style of wrestling. I mean, now the US is doing pretty good on the international level. Why do you think that is?
Well, I can tell you exactly why it is, because there's more money.
Okay.
There's more money keeping guys competing longer. There was no money when we were wrestling. None. Zero. And now they've got athlete resident training programs. They've got regional training centers. They've got bonuses for winning gold medals. And I just got back from the Emmys with my buddy, Ken Weller. Ken Weller is the president and founder of the United States Wrestling Foundation, who his organization is set up to raise money to give to the most elite wrestlers in the United States to keep them competing. And I just came back from their annual convention where they gave out checks for $50,000 to Jordan Burroughs, Kyle Dake, and David Taylor. That's going to keep them competing a lot longer if they can financially survive. That's why I left. I couldn't financially survive unless I was willing to put up with the BS from that idiot DuPont, and I wasn't willing to do it. So that's why they're getting better.
I see. Wow. So even though we have a different like discipline starting off, like it's still like, do you think it's like a advantage or a disadvantage? Like, because we have to learn a different style. Americans, that being we.
I don't think there's any disadvantage to having our collegiate style. None.
Really?
And when I switched from freestyle to collegiate, I just wrestled under the rules of freestyle or collegiate. Simple as that. The idea that collegiate style hurts our international because it's a different style, I didn't find that to be the case. Not with me, anyway.
Oh, I see. I mean, like, I even saw an interview with Gable. Like, he didn't know that, like, doing Granby rolls was a score. Stuff like that, you know. But.
Well, Gable doesn't know much about wrestling anyway. So.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Okay. Do tell. No. Do tell.
I'm kidding.
What does that guy know?
Yeah. The amateur.
Amateurs. I'm gonna edit this part out. I'm gonna edit this part out. I'm gonna feel like. What's that?
You need to remove that word amateur from wrestling, because there's professional wrestling, which is fake, and then there's amateur wrestling, which is real. It's Olympic and NCAA. That makes no sense. That amateur is a lower class word, or means a lower class of an athlete than a professional. It doesn't make any sense. In wrestling, it's backwards.
Yeah.
But it's true. Wrestlers at the world class level in freestyle and collegiate, they don't make any money so they're not professionals. They're poverty stricken. That's what they should have instead of amateur. They should change the name.
But doesn't that make it though? I'm not saying, I think it should definitely have more support, but I mean, that makes it like what you guys did, like all the more amazing. Like, it's like, there's not really even the financial benefit. It's just you have a goal and like, you have to do that. I mean, most people, they won't, you can't, you know, life happens and, you know, you need to be supported. Like, what are you going to work at Dick's Sporting Goods and train for a title? You know, like, oh, well, I got a 9 to 5 and I got to make weight. It's like,
yes, there's a lot of people in these, you know, free countries that end up having to do that, and they can't dedicate the kind of time you need to compete against the professional Soviet bloc countries that are basically professionals.
Or they get like a job with a pension, right? They win a medal, they're set up.
Yeah, you win you're set for life over there. I was born in the wrong country. No, I'm kidding. I don't think I'd want to live over there.
Well, especially not nowadays. It's kind of crazy, right? But
I'm from Belarus. I'd be right in the middle of the Chernobyl and the war in Ukraine and everything.
Oh my God!
Thank God my ancestors smelled the fear of the Nazis and got out of there in time. Because we're Jewish, you know.
Oh, I saw the Star of David on your Twitter. I was wondering about.
Yeah. My dad's 100% Ashkenazi Jew.
Oh, wow. Oh.
So I'm half, I guess.
Oh.
I don't know what I am. I'm white, Jew.
Well, I mean, I just think because that's the interesting thing about America, though, is I wonder, you know, I originally had the question, like, oh, you know, which country is, like, stronger? But, you know, most countries, it's, like, just one type of people. But America, you know, we have black, Hispanic, Asian competitors, you know, like China. You know, China could do better at wrestling, but they don't let the Mongols wrestle on their team because they want Han Chinese. And Han Chinese aren't that good. Maybe they're good at gymnastics or ping pong. But America would be like, oh, if you're good, But at the same point, like we're kind of like, well, can we make money from this?
Right. Yeah.
It's not like we're all saints in America. I'm like, oh, okay, we can let a black guy compete. We can let an Asian guy compete. But what's the return on that? I wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the government doesn't support the athletes, it's very difficult to compete in the Olympics. You got to go pro somehow, or quit and get a job or something.
Well, I believe that first, they did try to do like pro wrestling
They did.
early 2000s, and they had some interesting matches.
It didn't survive. There was no striking, no blood, so people didn't care. They want striking and blood, and that's why the UFC's worth $4 billion, 12 billion now. They just bought the WWE, so
Oh, really?
now they bought nine combined companies worth $21 billion. It's funny because when I competed, it was run by Bob Meyerowitz, and he was losing money, and he sold it to Dana White for $2 million and the Fertitta brothers, and they turn around and resold it 20 years later for $4 billion to MGM. And White kept his job as president and making him even more money. Now it's worth $12 billion, more than the WWE. That's $9 billion right there. So they bought the WWE. They're a merged company now.
Oh, wow. Well, man, I guess that's the good outlet of MMA and jiu-jitsu. Like, now, even if the Olympics isn't your track, you think it's like a good route that like you could at least go into.
Yeah.
MMA?
You can go MMA, and then when you're old and beat up, you can go into the WWE and put a mask on and create a new name and keep making money.
Okay. I see. Well, geez.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a mask on and be like, El Luchador or some weird
El
thing.
Luchador. Are you still training jiu-jitsu or?
A little, yeah. I do seminars all over the country, all over the world.
Wow. And that's where you can see the secret headlock escape.
That's right.
Not on this video. I kept you watching all the way to the end, but you have to see the seminar.
That's right.
Do you have any seminars coming up or any other events?
Yeah, I just put a seminar together in Hilldale, Utah. You know what Hilldale is?
I've never been in that area.
Yeah. This is a historic city. It's right on the border. It's on the north side of Utah. It's right on the border of Nevada and Utah, or maybe it's New Mexico, whatever it is. On the other side of that border is Colorado City, the home of Warren Jeffs, the famous polygamist.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we all need more wives, right? There's so much work to do. Just one? What? You only have one wife?
Yeah, you only have one wife? What's wrong with you?
Don't tell me you only have one kid, too.
No, I know. I was going through there on Google Maps, and you can tell this is a polygamous town because the houses are really big. You gotta house all these women and children,
Oh, wow. Well, I'm sure they'll have like plenty of sparring partners.
The weekend of the 26th of July, I'll be there.
That's funny. So you can have one seminar and it's probably just like two families fill the place up.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna have
that's my brother. Wow. Okay. So that's your upcoming one, or that's the one you just had?
No, that's the upcoming one.
Can you say that one more time, please?
It's in Hilldale, Utah, July 26th.
Okay.
Luke Meredith is the contact person. If you want to get a hold of me to find out more about that, you can go to my Facebook page, which is MS Grappling. You can go to my Twitter page, which is Mark Schultz that's my name with a Y. Or you can go to my Instagram page, which is Mark P. Schultz. My Schultz is spelled with a C, everybody leaves the C out. I don't know why, but SCH, not SH.
What's the matter with people?
George Schultz, he screwed it up for me for about 10 years.
Oh, I see.
C.
I see. Well, I can put that in. I can add text, so I can make that a little bit more clear. Well, geez, Mark, I hope it's not too late. Thanks so much for talking with me today.
You bet.
Yeah, I hope we can do so again if you ever have time.
You bet. And well, anytime you want, man.
Okay. Well, have a good one, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, Cole. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
All right.
Hope to come back someday.
Take care.